Hey, what's up everyone, Eric here. Today I'm going to show you how I anchored this Tuff Shed into the ground. Now I know this is a little bit of a different video from my usual kitchen cabinet videos, but I figure anyone who's really interested in kitchen renovation would probably be interested in home renovation in general or home related maintenance. So a little bit of a background story here. This Tuff Shed was installed by Home Depot, and as you can see on the left hand side here, this is basically just sitting on a bunch of cement tiles along with a couple of wood shims. You can see there, and again over there. And that's because this whole ground here, this is all sloping down. We're on a hill, and if we come back to the back of the shed over here, so you can see this side is a little bit sloped, so there's a little bit of a shim there going on. But if we come to the end over here, and we have just one shim, no more cement tiles here. So that's because this was all just very uneven. There's a little step in this concrete, so hopefully that's a better look. And then coming back around, you can see that we have a gap. We're starting to have a gap here again. And then coming back to the front, and you can see we've got a couple of tiles here again, along with the shim. So just for perspective, we are talking about 12 feet from front to back, and over to the back there's maybe just an inch or so of shim, and over here in the front this is about 6-7 inches, and then you can see right underneath the front door we have one extra tile versus the left side there's just 2 tiles. And then the highest point, or rather the lowest point in the ground relative to the bottom of the shed, it's over here. We've got 4 of these tiles plus shims, so I think this is around 8 inches or so, 8 or 9 inches roughly. And the installer from Home Depot for Tuff Shed basically said, oh yeah, this is pretty common. We don't anchor it because it's not really necessary, and it's also really difficult for him to do. Frankly, the job was actually scoped out to be anchored, but what I think happened was he basically did not have the tools or didn't know how, so he just refunded the money for the anchoring, and here we are. So what I've done was I've went ahead and added these threads, these metal threads, galvanized all thread basically. We'll call it all threads because the whole entire steel rod is threaded. And what we've done was basically we drilled all the way down from the inside of the shed into the ground, through the cement down here, and then we added this epoxy coating, just epoxy to basically glue down. It's construction glue basically, to glue down this thing to the ground, and I'll show you what it looks like inside, and then we'll talk about how we went ahead and did it and all that beautiful stuff. So alright, as you can see, these guys are insulating the shed here, so yeah, wanted to take a video before everything was covered up. So this thread goes all the way down from the inside of the shed, and then it's got this little bearing plate. It's basically a giant washer. This is not secure yet, so you can see there's our nuts and bolts basically, and this is still loose. Okay, you can see that there. Now, what's what's interesting is that, oh, maybe not so much interesting, but what's necessary really was just to basically have this rod be glued down, and then rather than having just the nut by itself, having this bearing plate helps apply pressure to hold down the whole entire structure. Now, you know, if you were building a house, and you would have more, I guess, more hardware, bigger and better hardware, stronger, beefier, and all that. This is really a shed. And honestly, I'm not a structural engineer. I'm just sharing what was done here. But this was at least done after having conversations with multiple general contractors and what they thought would do. So let me go ahead and show you what other considerations that we've used, we thought of, and what other materials that we thought to use. So let me put down the phone, and okay, let's take a look. We've got these brackets, anchor brackets. So how these would have been used is in conjunction with one of these anchor bolts. So these are your hardware that helps you attach from the inside here to something like this. And then you have this little squiggly anchor with a nut. Again, you would attach it with one of those bearing plates earlier. So this is more meant for if you were to pour new concrete underneath. And so what happens is basically you dig a hole, you sit this into concrete, let it dry for a few days, and then you would bury, like, you know, a foot of this or more, whatever, however much you can go, and you would bury that in ground. And they sell this in varying lengths. So here is the longer version. I think this one is 12 inches and this one is 16, if I remember correctly. And so you would sit that in there, and then this goes through, and then inside this hardware pack, there's a little round thing right there. That basically sits in here and acts as that washer that I was referring to, the bearing plate. And then you would tighten down the bolt, and basically what happens is this thing gets sucked down. This thing gets sucked down as you tighten the bolt, and it gets pulled into the earth, into the ground underneath. And with all the attachments, basically you're securing this whole thing by pressing down on your floor, and then also securing it to one of your vertical studs. That's the idea, and there's different sizes of this. I'm sure a structural engineer can tell you better what sizes to use and when and all that. That's really not what this video is about, but I just want to share some of the ideas and things that we thought of. Why we didn't use these, frankly, it was easier to go with the all thread. In speaking with various contractors, they thought that by having multiple threads around the shed on each of the walls, it was pretty much enough for the purpose of this. Again, this being a shed and not being an actual house with foundation and all that, this is really for storage. They wanted to insulate this so the user can, you know, come in for exercise, do some yoga and whatnot. That's really the purpose. It's not for someone to live in. So they thought this was sufficient for that, and also for just general storage. Okay, so that was one of the things that we looked at. And then Home Depot sells these packets of 12 inches, and they come in various lengths. I think they come in 12 and 16s. And it's really the same thing. you have a 5/8 stick, 5/8 stick material, thread, and you basically have the same installation. You drill through, secure your bottom plate, and then yeah, you just bolt it down. And rather than the bearing plate, they give you a big washer, and as you can see, this is a lot smaller than the bearing plate that we used earlier. So same idea. We didn't use this because this was more expensive, and also this didn't come in the length that we needed. It was easier for me to just buy a 6-foot long all thread, hot dip galvanized, so it's better for in-ground use, which is I think what this is too. But the ones that the all threads from Home Depot that they had in stock were not hot dip galvanized, so we went to a different hardware store and picked it up. So yeah, 6 feet long, and then we just cut it to whatever lengths we needed. Some of these bolts were longer, closer to 20 inches. So that was that. Other things that you will need for this project or something like this project, you will need a rotary drill, rotary hammer drill. So let me try to grab one real quick. Okay, so I don't have a rotary drill handy after all. The person who had the drill took it with him on his truck. So I just want to show you for size perspective. This is like your 12-volt typical homeowner power drill. This is your 18-volt, what most contractors will use. And some of these nicer ones will also have a hammer function, which is what I was referring to earlier, the hammer rotary drill. That guy. So you have regular drill, you have screw, and then the hammer. And what hammer is basically is it creates a vibration so that as you're drilling down, it's also pounding into the surface. So then it's actually helping you break apart things. Usually good for demo, but also good for like masonry work and all that. The hammer drill that I was referring to comes with 2 handles, and usually that's what we would go to for drilling cement, because you can try with these guys, and even though they got a hammer function, but really if you have the bigger powerful tool, it will save you more time. And that guy is easily 2-3 times the size of this this drill right here. And you need a drill bit. So here is the drill bit. It's, I mean, just for comparison, I'm gonna put that there. That's your typical drill bit for like screwing a few pieces of plywood together. That's your drill bit for those screws. Here is a 22-inch drill bit from Diablo. Milwaukee makes them also, but there's, and also you can see that the tip looks different. They're usually made a little bit more robust than your average tip that's just like the same size as the as a drill bit. So these are, I think, called the SDS Plus, and there's a bigger version called the SDS Max. So it's even bigger in diameter, and those are for like your 1-inch, 1.5-inch wide drills. So this one is 3/4 thick, and we were drilling with 3/4 for a 5/8 stick all thread. So yeah, you will need one of those rotary drills, rotary hammer drills, and then you'll need, of course, epoxy. So this is what we used here. Normally epoxy is like 2-part, and you have 2 different tubes, and you would have a special caulk gun for that. So in this case, we bought this basically like 2-in-1 mix, so you can use a regular caulk gun for it. And so what it is you've got 2 different parts here, and this little tube, maybe it's easier to see on this guy because it's colored. So you have the tube extension, and when it's all hooked up together, it was like this. So this is quite long, almost as long as the drill that we have over there, the drill bit. And you can see the different colors here. You have the gray, and then you have the white. That little orange in between is is basically the partition right there. And so as you push into the caulk gun, both types of liquids, I guess, if you will, are combining and mixing together, and then eventually squeeze out into this gray color. So the black and the white mixed together. Here's a dried up version. Here's one that we didn't use. So yeah, so a tip with the epoxy is that you want to make sure that it's bonding to something that's solid. So once you make the hole, right, like once you're drilling down into the cement, you want to clean it. You want to get a vacuum and you want to brush it out real good. Otherwise, you're just like painting on dust or gluing on dust, right? And then it's not going to stick to anything other than dust. So you want it to be solid and making a solid bond. So clean it, vacuum, all that, brush it out, and then make a good squeeze. Be generous with what you use. And then I would also recommend that you poke through and try to wiggle this rod a little bit just so you can get out any air bubbles that are in here. And then once that's done, then you have to just let it dry and not touch it for a few days. You know, depending on your temperature and in your environment, if you're in the 50 degrees Fahrenheit area, I think this takes 3 days to cure. Versus if you're in 70 degrees temperature, it takes about a day or so to cure. So that's a good reference point. And I was just reading this off of the back of the instructions there. So yeah, that's what we did. And hopefully this is helpful to somebody. Yeah, take care.